Okay, picture this. You're 14 years old. You're hiking near Glacier National Park in Montana. Beautiful scenery. And then you find something ancient.
Yeah, something that fundamentally changes things. That's pretty much what happened to Wes Linster back in 1995.
Exactly. And today, we're really going to dive into what he discovered. Bambiraptor feinbergi. It's this small, really fascinating bird-like dinosaur. Lived around 72 million years ago, late Cretaceous.
And we've got the actual scientific papers here, the descriptions, the analyses. It's a remarkable fossil.
It really is. And our mission today is sort of unpack why this Bambiraptor, the Bambi thief, we'll get to that name, why it's so important, for understanding how dinosaurs evolved, especially that link to birds.
Definitely. We want to break down the key stuff, the surprising details, make it clear without, getting bogged down in overly technical jargon.
Absolutely. So let's start at the beginning. This discovery by a kid, basically.
Right, a 14-year-old, Wes Linster. And finding it near Glacier National Park is significant, too. That whole area is known for amazing fossils. It just sets the stage perfectly.
And his reaction was classic, wasn't it? He apparently said, I bolted down the hill to get my mom because I knew I shouldn't be messing with it.
Ah. Yeah, even as a teenager, he grasped that this was something big, something important.
So the name, Bambiraptor feinbergi, it's kind of memorable.
It is, and it tells the story. Bambiraptor, Bambi thief.
Yeah.
It refers to the Disney deer, right? Because
Yeah.
it was small, maybe even a bit grancile compared to other raptors.
Okay, makes sense. And feinbergi.
That part honors the Feinberg family. They acquired this specimen, unfortunately, initially from a fossil poacher, but crucially, they made it available for scientific study.
Okay, so a bit of a complicated backstory there with the poacher.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And there was actually a move to change the species name to feinbergorum at one point to honor the whole family, but the naming rules, the ICZN rules, didn't allow that kind of retroactive change. So Feinbergi stuck.
Right. And the scientists who formally described it in 2000, wow, it's like a paleo dream team.
Oh, absolutely. You had David Burnham, Craig Dersler, Phil Curry, Robert Baker, huge names, Zhu Zongyi too, and John Ostrom.
John Ostrom. His work on Deinonychus in the 60s and 70s basically revolutionized the whole dinosaur-bird connection idea.
Exactly. So having him involved in describing Bambiraptor really underlined its potential significance right from the start.
Okay, so let's talk about the actual fossil, the main one, the holotype specimen.
Right, that's AMNH FR 30556. It was found in the Upper Two Medicine Formation. And it's just spectacular. It's a partially articulated skeleton, meaning many bones were still connected, mostly complete.
Wow.
And it includes the skull, which is often missing or crushed. The preservation is just excellent. They noted at the very end of the tail wasn't there, but otherwise,
Yeah.
really good.
And it was a young one, right? A juvenile.
That's right, a juvenile individual. But they also found other material nearby, what's called a paratype, FIP 0002136. That includes bits from at least 2 adult individuals, 34 elements, bones.
Oh, interesting. So you get a glimpse of different life stages.
Exactly. And later, another upper jawbone, a maxilla, from the Museum of the Rockies, MOR 553S731274, was also identified as Bambiraptor. So the picture builds over time.
Now, you mentioned how great the holotype is, but wasn't there some initial questioning about it? Like maybe it wasn't its own thing?
Yes, and that's totally normal in science. Good science involves skepticism. There was some early speculation, could this just be a juvenile Sauronitholestes, another small dromaeosaurid found in the same formation?
Okay.
And there was even a question about it being a chimera.
A chimera? Like mixed up bones?
Sort of, yeah. Because some bones from, I think, different lower legs were found close together, the question arose, were these definitely all from one animal? But detailed study confirmed it was a distinct species, Bambiraptor.
Right, the scientific process in action. So how big was this juvenile, though?
Tiny. The holotype preserved length is about 90 centimeters, so just under 3 feet. Estimated total length maybe a meter. And weight, probably only around 2 kilograms.
2 kilos? That's like 4.4 pounds. Smaller than my cat.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Very small for a dinosaur, even a raptor.
But small doesn't mean slow or weak, right? You mentioned agility earlier.
Definitely not weak. It had really long hind limbs, suggesting it was a fast runner. And surprisingly long arms, too, with a well-developed wishbone, the furcula.
Wishbone. Ding, ding, ding. Big bird connection there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A key feature shared with birds. Now, about the adults, that gets interesting.
Okay, how big did they get?
Well, there was a conference abstract, SVP 2021, that looked at that referred maxilla, the MOR specimen. They suggested the juvenile holotype might only be like 30 to 40% the size of that individual.
Whoa, so the adults could have been much bigger.
Potentially, yeah. If you just scale that up directly, you could get lengths of maybe 2.5 to 3.3 meters. That's 8 to 11 feet, roughly.
That's quite a leap from the little juvenile.
It is. But the abstract authors themselves pointed out a potential issue. That specimen is just an upper jaw, and young animals often have proportionally larger heads than adults. So scaling just from the jaw might overestimate the adult size.
Ah, okay. Like a puppy with big feet.
Kind of, yeah. Gregory S. Paul, another well-known paleoartist and researcher, estimated in 2010 maybe 1.3 meters, about 4.3 feet long, and 5 kilos for an adult. Still small, but a bit more robust to the juvenile.
So probably small, definitely agile. What about those long arms? Any special function?
This is one of the coolest parts, I think. Research by Phil Center looked closely at the forelimbs. He proposed that Bambiraptor might have had, get this, mutually opposable first and third fingers.
Opposable, like our thumbs.
Similar concept, yeah. But the first and third digits potentially working against each other, and combined with a lot of flexibility in the wrist and arm, he suggested the hand could actually reach the mouth.
Wait, reach its own mouth with its hand. What's the implication there?
It implies it could potentially manipulate food, hold prey maybe, and run it directly to its mouth. Think about how some small mammals like squirrels or raccoons eat.
Okay, that's really different from the usual image of a raptor just tearing into things with its teeth and claws, holding food.
Exactly. It suggests a level of dexterity we don't often associate with dinosaurs. Another little hint of bird-like or maybe even mammal-like sophistication.
Mind blown. Okay, what about the brain? We often hear raptors were smart.
Well, Bambiraptor definitely adds to that picture. The holotype's brain case allowed for an estimate of its brain volume about 14 cubic centimeters. Now, for its body size?
Was it big?
Relatively speaking, yes. At the time it was described, it was calculated as having the largest brain-to-body size ratio of any known dinosaur.
Wow. The Einstein of the Cretaceous.
Huh. Well, there's a caveat. Remember, the holotype is a juvenile.
Ah, right. Young animals often have proportionally bigger heads and brains.
Exactly. As the body grows, that ratio changes. So, while impressive, the high ratio might be partly due to its youth. Still, David Burnham, one of the describers, pointed out the cerebellum seemed particularly large.
Cerebellum, that's for coordination, balance, right?
Precisely. So Burnham floated a couple of hypotheses. Maybe it points to an arboreal lifestyle living in trees that would definitely require excellent balance and coordination, evolutionary pressure for a bigger cerebellum.
A tree-climbing raptor. Interesting.
Or, alternatively, maybe it needed that brain power and coordination to hunt really agile prey, quick lizards, early mammals, things like that. Either way, it suggests a complex, active little animal.
Okay, so agile, maybe climbing, maybe hunting fast prey, smart, dexterous hands. This picture's getting really vivid. Now, feathers. Did it have feathers?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The holotype itself, the fossil, didn't preserve any direct traces of feathers. No impressions.
But reconstructions almost always show it feathered. I remember seeing one by Brian Cooley back when it was announced.
You're right. And that reconstruction showing feathers was based on strong inference. It's called phylogenetic bracketing.
Okay, explain that.
Basically, you look at the family tree. Bambiraptor belongs to the Dromaeosauridae family, which sits within a larger group called Paravs. Paravs includes birds, which obviously have feathers.
Right.
And we also know other close relatives of Dromaeosaurids, like the Oviraptorosauria group, had feathered members, like Caudipteryx. So if groups above, below, and alongside Bambiraptor on the tree have feathers.
The logical conclusion is that Bambiraptor probably did too, even without direct proof on that specific fossil.
Exactly. It's like knowing your cousins have brown hair, so you likely inherited the genes for it too. And since then, of course, many other small dromaeosaurid fossils have been found with feathers preserved, confirming the inference was correct.
Science filling in the gaps. It's cool how that works. Now, within the Dromaeosaurid family, where does Bambiraptor actually sit? Is that settled?
Well, that's still a bit debated. Phylogenetics, figuring out exact evolutionary relationships, is always being refined as we get more data and better methods.
So it's definitely a Dromaeosaurid, but the specifics.
Right. When first described in 2000, it was placed in Dromaeosauridae. Some later analyses suggested it might be a Microraptorian.
Microraptorians. Those are the ones like Microraptor, potentially with 4 wings.
That's the group, yes. Other studies placed it with the Sauronetholestinae, think Sauronetholestis. More recently, analyses often put it either as a close relative, a sister taxon, to other main groups, or perhaps within Eudromaeosauria.
Eudromaeosauria. That's like the true raptors, including Velociraptor and Deinonychus.
Generally, yes. It's a major subgroup, so its exact position is still, let's say, flexible, depending on the analysis you look at. But it's firmly in that bird-like dromaeosaur part of the tree.
Okay, so whether it's a Microraptorian cousin or closer to Velociraptor, its discovery was clearly a huge deal. I read Martin Sugar called it the Rosetta Stone for the dinosaur-bird link.
He did. Sugar, from the Florida Paleontology Institute, where the specimen initially resided, comparing it to the Rosetta Stone. That's about as high praise as you can get in science. It highlights how much information was packed into that one relatively complete fossil.
And John Ostrom agreed, right?
He absolutely did. Ostrom called it a jewel. He specifically mentioned how its well-preserved, undistorted bones would really help advance understanding of that dinosaur-bird connection he'd championed for decades. Coming from Ostrom, that's incredibly significant.
Yeah, you can feel the weight of that endorsement. So let's try and tie this all together. We have Bambiraptor, found by a teenager, the small late Cretaceous dromaeosaurid.
Yep. Incredibly complete skeleton for its kind.
This tells us it was likely very agile, fast runner, long arms, maybe even used its hands to hold food, which is just amazing to think about.
And a relatively large brain, especially that cerebellum, hinting at perhaps tree climbing or hunting nimble prey. Complex behaviors.
And almost certainly feathered, based on its place in the family tree, strengthening that dino-bird link, even if its exact spot within the dromaeosaurids is still being worked out.
Precisely. Its completeness, the sheer amount of detail preserved, just gives us this incredibly valuable snapshot, a real window into the late Cretaceous ecosystem.
It's fantastic. Hopefully, listening to this, you've had some of those aha moments, seeing how all these pieces fit together for this amazing little creature. It wasn't some giant monster, but its impact on science has been huge.
Definitely. It shows you don't need the biggest fossil to make the biggest splash. Sometimes the small, well-preserved ones tell you the most intricate stories.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Considering everything we've discussed, Bambiraptor's agility, those grasping hands, the brain power, how different was its role in that ecosystem compared to, say, a Tyrannosaurus or a big hadrosaur?
Good question.
What does having such a specialized bird-like predator running, or maybe climbing, around tell us about the sheer variety of life back then? And maybe, just maybe, does it give us clues about the kinds of pressures that eventually pushed some small dinosaurs down the path to becoming birds?
Lots to chew on there. It certainly paints a picture of a much more diverse and nuanced world than just big dinosaurs stomping around.
Indeed. Something to keep pondering.